And we will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 81, which exempts the state of Nevada from provisions of federal law relating to daylight savings time. To present this measure, we have Assembly Member Rue Hatch. Welcome to the Government Affairs Committee, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Considine, Vice Chair Wynn, and the Committee on Government Affairs. I am Assembly Member Selena Rue Hatch. In the interest of fairness, I will spell my name for the record, so Selena, LA space capital RUEHATCH. I know it's a doozy. But I represent Assembly District 25, which is in West Reno. And this morning, I am excited to present AB81, also known as the Lock the Clock Act. This bill essentially exempts us from the federal requirements about daylight savings time and puts Nevada on permanent standard time. I'm going to walk you through the bill quickly because it is short, and then I will explain my reasoning for why I'm bringing this measure. So, AB 81, as I just said, literally exempts us from observing daylight savings time from the second Sunday of March each year, ending on the first Sunday of November each year. During that time period, we will observe standard time. Then you'll note I am bringing a small amendment. In the original bill, it says this act takes effect on July 1st, 2025. If the whole point is to stop us from changing clocks, it doesn't make sense for us to suddenly switch to standard time on July 1st. So instead, my amendment has this act taking effect on January 1st, 2026. So we will change the clocks one last time in November to standard time, and then we would not have to change the clocks from that point on. Now, you may be wondering, why am I bringing this legislation? Well, I hear about this issue from my constituents constantly. And in talking to other Assembly members, it sounds like many of you probably also hear from your constituents about concerns over daylight savings time. And these are not just folks that are upset about losing an hour of sleep or having to change their clocks. There are documented negative health effects that come from observing daylight savings time and changing our clocks twice a year. We know that in the weeks following a clock change, there are worsened health impacts. Strokes, heart attacks go up, digestive issues increase, medical outcomes are worsened. And in fact, many health organizations endorse permanent standard time as being more natural, more in line with our circadian rhythm, and healthier for our bodies. Additionally, around clock changes, mental health issues worsen. Anxiety increases, depression increases. Permanent daylight savings time would actually increase seasonal depression and other issues related to darkness in the mornings. There are public safety issues. Car accidents go up. Workplace accidents go up when we change the clocks. And there are economic increases. We have measurable productivity decreases when we change the clocks. And while some argue that the clock changes are meant to save energy, we actually don't even save money on energy because the offset in light is outweighed by the increased demand for heating and cooling in the mornings and the evenings when we're on daylight savings time. So this bill is a way for us to immediately have positive impacts on our public health without us having to spend any money. And to me, that seems like a pretty good policy proposal. Now, I will absolutely stand for questions, but before I answer them, I want to head off just a couple of them. Some folks have asked, well, why can't we do permanent daylight savings time? Why are you doing permanent standard time? The answer is we are not allowed to do permanent daylight savings time. The federal government allows us to exempt ourselves and observe permanent standard time only. So if we want to stop changing the clocks, which is really the health issue, this is our only option for doing so. You may also ask, why have we not done this before if it's so common sense? Well, we have tried it multiple times, but previous bills have tied us to we'll change when California changes, or we'll change when the feds change. And in my opinion, we are the Nevada legislature, and I don't think we can wait on anybody else to do what's right for our constituents. So this bill is simple and straightforward and an immediate fix. Some people argue that farmers and ranchers want this, but as someone who grew up on a ranch, let me tell you, the cows are getting up at the same time, no matter what the clock says. So this is not something that helps our agricultural producers. And for those folks that are worried, oh, well, we might be the only ones. We're not the only ones. Arizona and Hawaii already observe permanent standard time. They love it, from what I have heard talking to folks living in those areas. And there are, in fact, 30 states that are considering similar legislation currently, because as more and more evidence is coming out of the harms of daylight savings time, more and more states are responding to their constituent concerns. So with that, that is the bill. I tried to keep it short. Again, this is a bill that will have immediate positive health impacts and positive impacts on the quality of life of our constituents, and we don't have to spend a single dollar. So with that, Chair, I stand ready for your questions.
Thank you, Assemblymember, for the presentation. Questions from the committee? We will start with Assemblymember De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Assemblymember, for being here. As I said, you always lighten up the room every time you walk into any of these hearing rooms here. Quick, again, two-part question. First, the health concerns, especially the cardiac sort of related events that were on the rise during the change in time. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that and why there is such like consensus with all of our healthcare advocacy organizations throughout the country on supporting a bill like yours. And then also as a classroom teacher, I was wondering if you could also speak about some of the disruptions that we see in our classrooms, during the time change periods as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chair, may I go direct? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Assemblymember Rue Hatch, for the record. I didn't need to get the sign. So for the heart portion of your question, there are documented increased cardiac arrests and cardiac events that happen both times we change the clock, whether it is forward or back. And that is why there are numerous medical associations that have endorsed permanent standard time. This includes the American Academy of Cardiovascular Sleep Medicine. It includes the American Medical Association, the American Association of Public Health Physicians, and a whole lot more that I'm happy to provide to the committee. But the medical consensus seems to be that this is a negative impact on our communities, and this is the fix for their health. For your second question about students, you and I see it every year, right? In our classrooms, students come in after these clock changes. They're tired. They're not as focused. Those of us that are parents know that our children are disrupted for weeks after this clock change. And it's not just anecdotal. There are actually studies to back up the loss of learning in students, the increase in anxiety, the increase in behavioral issues when they are having these severe disruptions to their sleep patterns.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I'd heard that we were looking at some federal legislation for this as well, that some of that might be coming through. I'm just curious if you have an update on where that might be, and then if you have any current updates on our neighboring states, where if they're currently having legislation come in, California, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, any updates would be appreciated.
Thank you so much for the question. Assemblymember Rue Hatch, for the record. So yes, this is actually a bipartisan effort. The Trump administration has also expressed interest in ending this. There has been both Democrats and Republicans that think this is a policy we should end. I think we all know the speed at which the federal government moves. And so my argument is that while I hope the federal government sees that this policy needs to be changed, we can't wait for them. We need to enact something immediately for our constituents and hope that the federal government sees our example and catches up. As far as our neighbors, I have been working with other representatives in other states. We have a coalition of multi-states that talk about this issue. There's legislation moving through California currently, through Oregon, through Utah, and Arizona already has this. So our neighboring states are talking about this issue, and I am hopeful that multiple of our states will be able to move forward.
On the federal level, have they actually presented a bill, or they're just talking about it?
Assemblymember Rue Hatch, for the record. There has not been a bill so far, to my knowledge, of permanent standard time, but I do know it has been a discussion amongst the administration.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assemblymember Rue Hatch. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the timeline. You mentioned one more change, and then instead of becoming effective in July, would have been July of this year. You're saying January of next year. So we will change to daylight saving times in March, when spring, whatever we do this. And then in November, it would just stay where it is, but become statewide effective as of January of the next year. Just that, making sure, because it seems to me the timeline would be fine in July, considering we would have already made the change. And okay,
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch for the record. So let me clarify. In November, and I think this year March 9th, we will shift to daylight savings time. If this bill became effective on July 1st, we would suddenly change the clocks again to go back to standard time. I would love for us to implement this before March 9th so that we don't have to observe another daylight savings time, but I just don't think that is possible with our legislative timeline. So we will observe one more period of daylight savings time beginning on March 9th and lasting until November 2nd. If it's the committee's desire, we could make this effective on November 2nd. It doesn't really make a difference because November 2nd and January 1st are both during permanent standard time. So whenever this bill becomes adopted during our permanent standard time season, we would just not change the clocks. So we are due for 2 more clock changes, to answer your question, but that's simply because I can't implement this before our next daylight savings time approaches.
Can I have a quick follow-up, Madam Chair? I just wanted to make sure, because Arizona is always on the same time, which is where it's going to place us, and they're an hour ahead of us. So when we change in March, we will catch up with the time that they're on. So we'll match up with that time Arizona's on. So it just seems like we're already going to be in it because we're going to go forward. So I may be misunderstanding something, but we're already going to go forward. So it seems like we could just stay there since that's where we're going.
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch for the record. I understand, and the goal really is to stop changing the clocks, but we're not allowed to stay in permanent daylight savings time. When we go an hour forward, that is daylight savings time. So the feds won't allow us to just stay there. We'd have to shift back to permanent time, and then we can stay. And that's the federal restrictions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? I do have a question. We have received a lot. There's over a dozen exhibits just on the website. And I just want to be clear that I've received, or this committee has received an amendment. Is that the only amendment currently that you are accepting on this bill?
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch for the record. The amendment on the time change, or the implementation date, is the only amendment that I am accepting.
Thank you very much. And with no other questions, thank you for the presentation, and we will move on to testimony on the bill. Again, testimony can be provided in person in Carson City, video conference in Las Vegas, or by phone. Instructions on providing testimony can be found on the agenda. As I mentioned at the start of this meeting, we will set a 20-minute time limit for the periods of support, opposition, and neutral testimony, with each speaker having 2 minutes. To ensure as many people as possible can testify, feel free to say ditto if someone else has already covered your testimony. First, we will begin testimony in support of AB1, and anyone in Carson City who would like to approach and provide testimony in support, please approach. Thank you. And begin when you're ready.
Hello. Okay. Hi, my name's Annie Vong, ANNIEV as in Victor, ONG. For Cartwright NV Government Affairs, we're representing Nevada Public Health Association, or NPHA. They've submitted a letter, and we would just like to verbally acknowledge that. Seasonal time changes, as Assemblymember LaRue Hatch said, poses a risk for public health when it comes to motor vehicle crashes and cardiovascular events, and NPHA fully supports this bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Justice Forrest, spelled Justiceforest. I am the Administrative Assistant for the Nevada Association for the Education of Young Children, and we are strongly in support of AB81 because of the reasons as mentioned by both Assemblymember LaRue Hatch and Assemblymember De Silva regarding the adverse effects of mental health of children, particularly mood swings, difficulty focusing, difficulties with concentration, and worse performance in schools that are caused by daylight savings time, as well as in particular the increase in traffic fatalities that results from Drivers also suffering the same issues with sleep deprivation, mood swings, difficulties concentrating, etc. And for that, we support it not only for the mental health of our children, but for their safety in preventing traffic fatalities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to testify in support? Seeing no one approach, we can go to Las Vegas, but I don't see anyone in Las Vegas right now. ABH, is there anyone on the line in support for AB81?
To testify in support of AB 81, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Again, if you wish to testify in support, please press star 9.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you, committee. It's a little awkward not being new, but it's very good to be here. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is JP. First name is spelled J-A-Y. Last name is spelled P-E-A. I'm the president of the nonprofit Safe Standard Time in Arizona. I'm also the co-chair for the Coalition for Permanent Standard Time, a national group of 8 nonprofits for health and safety. And I'm here to ask for your support of Assembly Bill 81. Thank you to the Assemblywoman for bringing this forward. This bill can lock the clock as members wish in the quickest way possible, being that it's federally pre-approved, and in the safest, healthiest, and most lasting way possible, as proven by the lessons of history and of science. Daylight saving time is simply a mandate to wake earlier and to sleep less. When you spring your clock forward in a couple of weeks, your alarm will be sounding an hour earlier in the dark morning, and will do so an hour earlier every single day until you put it back to standard time. Over the long term, this deprives an average of 19 minutes less sleep every single night, and that leads to loss of life and loss of revenue here. And permanent daylight time would even cost more. It'd be forcing people to work in the dark for half the year, which is why it's federally prohibited. Summer makes the days longer. Nothing the government does can change the length of the day. Permanent standard time is the natural clock set to the sun. 12 p.m. is high noon. It balances the morning and evening light, and that morning light is especially important for our sleep, our mood, our healthy, our safety, our education, our productivity, especially for school children, commuters, outdoor laborers, service personnel, those who need the morning light most. This is the opinion of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, the American Academy of Psychology, the National Safety Council, even Bloomberg's editorial board. Arizona, Hawaii, the 5 territories, most nations have been doing this for incident. Mexico, just a couple of years ago, adopted permanent standard time. California, Oregon, Idaho, and many other states are looking at doing this, and I'm certain that the first one bravely steps forward. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have, but please support Assembly Bill 81, lock the clock in the quickest, safest, and healthiest, and most lasting way possible. Thanks again very much.
If you recently joined the call and would like to testify in support of AB 81, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City who would like to testify in opposition to AB 81? Seeing no one coming forward and seeing no one in Las Vegas, AVH, we're back to you if there's anyone willing or wishing to testify in opposition.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 81, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Vincent Valenti. Valenti. I'm asking the Assembly to move forward with Assembly Bill 81. I was trying to press to vote positive, but I wasn't able to get in. Allowing Nevada to remain on Pacific Standard Time year-round. Living in Las Vegas, Pacific Standard Time would benefit people with small children and pets. It's very dangerous to walk pets and small children and elderly in the summer heat in Las Vegas until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Sidewalks are scalding hot. Animals are trapped inside the entire day. Families with small children are unable to walk their pets because their children have to go to bed early. It makes no sense to have daylight until 9 o'clock when it's 115 degrees outside. On the flip side, switching to daylight savings time means that it's darker in the morning during spring to March, April, and May. People are walking their pets before going to work, and they're unable to see predators like coyotes, bobcats, and owls, which are prominent in Northwest Las Vegas, putting the owners and the pets at risk. Please let us join Arizona in keeping Pacific Standard Time year-round. Thank you, Assembly Member Hatch, for introducing the bill and for considering my response.
Thank you very much. We will move this testimony in support, but we will continue with testimony in opposition, AVH.
Hello. My name is Ron Aryel. I'm a pediatrician. I'm calling not specifically to say that this is definitely a bad idea, but to say that this is a little premature. Now, Assemblywoman Hatch has done a lot of good work here and brought in, has done a lot of homework, and I appreciate that. But a little premature to have this bill move forward at this time, because I don't think she's talked to all of the stakeholders that need to be involved in, such as tribal chiefs, the resort and casino community, other businesses, and as well as reviewing the scientific studies. I mean, you have documented health effects when the time springs forward, but then you also have a decrease in those effects when the time springs back again. Additionally, there are studies from Vivent and the Brookings Institution showing that robberies and violent crime tend to spike when daylight savings time ends. And so the presence of daylight savings times, especially in the summer months, and we are dependent on the resort industry and the casino industry, it actually reduces crime during the evening hours. So what I'm suggesting, and I submitted an amendment proposal. I understand the Assemblywoman doesn't want it, but I want it, and I'd like to persuade you to adopt it, to create a commission to study the issue in Nevada and make sure to include all the stakeholders that I mentioned in that amendment, and put together a study that the governor would there was a meta-analysis of all the studies and come to a consensus of what we should do. And then the 2027 legislature can act on it. It's a little premature, a little rash to do it now, but with a good study and a commission creating a consensus, then we can accept whatever that consensus is. The 2027 legislature can move forward. We can't necessarily count on the federal government or other states, and we need to do what's good for Nevada. And I'm not saying that this is a bad idea. I'm just saying let's
Mr.
do.
Aryel, but your 2 minutes.
Study.
If you can wrap up, your 2 minutes have
Okay.
ended.
Yeah. Okay. But that's it in a nutshell. And I thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair. This is Dora Martinez, and I apologize. I was still having trouble to unmute when it was for both positive for AB81. So as a visually impaired mom and have been babysitting kids with autism, we appreciate Assembly Member Rue Hatch for bringing this forward, and I hope that you guys can approve it and move it forward, because it's the right thing to do. And thank you so much.
Thank you. We will move that testimony to support. AVH, are there any other calls for opposition?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. We have no additional callers at this time.
Thank you. We will now move to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City who wishes to testify in neutral on Assembly Bill 81? Seeing no one approach and still no one in Las Vegas, AVH, we're back with you. Is there anyone on the phone to testify in neutral?
The public line is open and working. We have no callers for neutral at this time.
Thank you. Would the presenter like to make any final remarks? Go right ahead.
Member Rue Hatch, for the record, thank you so much for hearing this morning. I just wanted to get on the record that I have spoken to many, many stakeholders about this issue, and none of them, including the ones that were listed in the call, expressed any concerns. And in fact, I've had no formal opposition that has reached out about this. And I think the fact that many ordinary folks, non-lobbyists, have sent in support testimony and called in this morning shows how popular this is among our constituents. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I will now close the hearing on AB 81.